Part 15. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 141. I'll leave two for you guys to eat later. Faced with these two children, Oda Michiko could only compromise helplessly. Cut two portions first and pack them, and the rest is up to them. However, Lin Zion didn't eat it. He had no interest in desserts and had just finished his meal. So only Oda Reina cut a little and slipped away to eat. No words all night. Lin Zion opened his eyes with the rhythmic knocking on the door, but Shigeki Chihiro, who used to stand at the head of the bed, was gone because she was still in the basement. Got it, don't knock. Lin Zion turned over and got out of bed. If it came a few more times, he would want to hit her. It's not even 7 o'clock yet, who can stand this alarm clock? Why did you wake me up so early? Don't you know that you will grow taller if you sleep a little longer? Lin Zion opened the door and looked at the energetic Oda Reina and said helplessly. Oni-chan lied to me again. Oda Reina didn't care about Lin Zion's words. Hey. You know what? This is scientifically based, especially for people like you who are in the growth spurt. I don't care. I'll wake you up. Oda Reina now drinks milk every night and often takes calcium tablets. She has no interest in Lin Zion's suggestions. Because there is no entertainment for a long time at night, her biological clock is almost ready to go to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock. By 6 in the morning, it's enough time to sleep. You are so naughty. You want to try my tricks, right? Lin Zion just raised his hands and scared Oda Reina to run away. Huh? Play with me. In fact, Lin Zion also went to bed very early. It's not that there is anything uncomfortable about getting up early. He just likes the feeling of staying in bed. Morning. Lin Zion greeted Oda Michiko, who was in the kitchen. Well, morning, Qingtian. Oda Michiko directly brought out breakfast. Lin Zion took a look and saw that there were only 2 servings. This is a bit abnormal. Oda Michiko can't forget that she has a daughter, right? Why is there one less breakfast? Is Reina not going to eat breakfast? Lin Zion didn't find Oda Reina on the first floor, and didn't know where she went again. She's finished eating. Oda Michiko looked at Lin Zion with resentment. She saw Oda Reina got up early in the morning and ran to the refrigerator to cut a cake and took it back to the room. This was really greedy. In the past, she often brought some small cakes that were left over to be disposed of back to her, but she didn't have such a big desire for cakes at that time. In Oda Michiko's eyes, Oda Reina's current behavior was uneducated, which made her lose face in front of Lin Zion. But Lin Zion still protected her. She felt that Lin Zion was sometimes mature and stable, and sometimes childish. The two completely different personalities made up an ordinary person with a worldly atmosphere. Anyway, these 2 children really gave her a headache. Lin Zion also saw that Oda Michiko was a little resentful, so he honestly didn't provoke her. After breakfast, he rolled to the living room and waited for Reina to go out. Michiko Oda took the bowls and chopsticks to the kitchen. She also had to repackage the cake that Lin Zion wanted. It couldn't be worse than the one sold in the store outside, so as not to embarrass Jing Tianjun. But Michiko Oda found that one of the cake boxes she bought was missing. Because she had been in contact with these for a long time, she was very familiar with them. A simple check showed that something was really missing. Jing Tianjun would definitely not touch these things. What did Reina do with them? Thinking of what happened in the morning, Michiko Oda trembled in her heart and hurried upstairs to Reina Oda's room. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Reina Oda wrapping the cake, but she couldn't wrap it well. Reina Oda didn't have any strange reaction to her mother's appearance. After turning her head and taking a look, she said a little anxiously, "Mom, help me quickly, otherwise Oni-chan won't wait for me later." Reina Oda was only concerned with the cake in front of her, but didn't notice her mother's gloomy face. "Reina, what are you doing? You are stealing. Michiko Oda walked over and grabbed Reina Oda's hand. Come with me and apologize to King Tian-kun. Mom, what are you doing? I didn't steal anything. Reina Oda was dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Then why did you take this cake? Do you need to pack it if you want to eat it yourself? We are just servants living here. You took it away without the master's consent. This is stealing. I didn't steal. If I asked Unai-chan, he would definitely agree. What did I teach you? Some things can't be done. How will he see us mother and daughter if you do this? I didn't. Reina Oda felt that she couldn't make it clear with Michiko Oda at all. She could only struggle hard and wanted to find Lin Ziyan. But with her strength, how could she break free from Michiko Oda's hand? Just when she was about to call Lin Ziyan, a scolding interrupted her thoughts. Stop! What are you doing? Lin Ziyan pulled the two people apart and stood in the middle. Lin Ziyan intervened in the dispute between the mother and daughter. Michiko Oda didn't show any other reaction when she saw Lin Ziyan coming over. She just said calmly, I'm teaching my daughter. Please don't interfere, King Tian-kun. Lin Ziyan looked at her and thought about their conversation just now. He couldn't help but complain in his heart, you are not teaching your daughter at all. The basic logic is messed up. In this state, if it was me in front of you instead of your daughter, I might have pulled out a knife. Listen to me first. I don't care how you teach your daughter afterwards. Originally, Michiko Oda had been prepared for the possibility of Lin Ziyan intervening, but what he said now. Come with me first. Lin Ziyan walked out of Reina's room by himself. Michiko Oda followed him out after hesitating for a while, leaving the confused Reina alone. Lin Ziyan took Michiko Oda to his room, closed the door casually, and asked in a gentle tone, what's wrong with you this time? Michiko Oda also didn't understand Lin Ziyan's attitude. She had planned to argue with reason, but being dragged by him like this, it seemed like something was missing, but she didn't know what it was. Anyway, it was a very strange feeling. Come and sit down. Lin Ziyan waved to her. There was no chair in his room, so he could only sit by the bed. Michiko Oda really sat on it for some reason. Speak. Although Michiko Oda felt something was wrong, she still followed Lin Ziyan's words and said it out. That's it. Lin Ziyan was speechless after hearing this. Although this was similar to what he had deduced from the few words he had heard, Oda Michiko's genius logic still convinced him. What do you mean by that? If you don't take it seriously, what if Reina learns bad things in the future? Oda Michiko looked at Lin Ziyan, who didn't care about it, and said angrily, you have to take a lot of responsibility for her behavior. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 142. Stop, 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 Lin Ziyan interrupted Michiko Oda, I just said that I will not interfere with your education of your daughter. This is your right as a mother, so I didn't call you here to say these things. Then what do you want to say? Michiko Oda originally thought that Lin Ziyan wanted to persuade her, and he just felt embarrassed, so he called her over. But now it seems that it is really not the same thing. I want to talk to you about your mental state. What do you mean? Are you saying I'm crazy? Michiko Oda suddenly felt that Lin Ziyan was crazy. Is there a connection between the two? Is he questioning his own brain? Don't be anxious, listen to me first, and think about it yourself if it makes sense. Lin Ziyan seemed to know that she would have such a reaction, and said calmly. You say. Michiko Oda also wanted to know what he could say. Then let's analyze why you have such an idea first. Lin Ziyan smiled a little weirdly. You found that Reina has changed, and she is different from before, which leads to your wrong perception of Reina. You try your best to correct her, and even, make trouble for no reason. Have you ever thought about what Reina really did wrong? Lin Ziyan looked at Oda Michiko. Of course, this is your subconscious reaction, and sometimes you don't even know it. What do you mean? Uh, Simply put, you think that the current Reina is not the previous Reina, so you want to transform her into the previous Reina. This, I. Oda Michiko frowned, she didn't know if she had such an idea. Don't think about it. You may not be able to see it yourself, but it's obvious to me as an outsider. You've been very dissatisfied with Reina recently, but it just exploded today. Then why did you tell me now? Lindsay Ian smiled bitterly, you have to believe it, and you can say it yourself. This is a matter between you two mothers and daughters. How can I say it? Education is not taught like this, Lindsay Ian said earnestly. The key to educating children is guidance, not just preaching. You were also a child, don't you know this? Michiko Oda was speechless for a moment. Okay, it's getting late. You should first recognize yourself before educating Reina. Now, can you help Reina pack the cake first? Lindsay Ian spoke to her in a very calm tone, without any sense of preaching. Yes, Michiko Oda only remembered that she seemed to have missed something, and hurriedly got up and prepared to go out, but Lindsay Ian's voice came from behind her. You promised me, go. Yes, Oda Michiko's figure suddenly lowered, and then slowly recovered. As soon as Lindsay Ian went out, he took Odarina away and prepared things for school with her. He didn't have much to prepare, mainly Rena's things. Lindsay Ian helped Rena comb a few messy hairs with his hands. At this time, Oda Michiko came down with a packaged cake. When Odarina saw her coming down, she hid behind Lindsay Ian as if in a stress reaction, looking at her vigilantly. Oda Michiko looked at Rena hiding behind Lindsay Ian, and that look made her doubt what she had done. Okay, if you don't leave now, you will be late. Lindsay Ian interrupted this embarrassing scene and gently pushed Rena out with his hand. Seeing that the two people didn't react, Lindsay Ian had to take the cake from Oda Michiko's hand and handed it to Odarina. Michiko, help me get those two. Lindsay Ian sent Oda Michiko away casually. Put on your shoes with Reina and wait for her to come out. Oda-kun, Michiko Oda came out with two boxes in her hands. I haven't packed this yet. What's the point of packing? You still have to open it. Lindsay took it and said bluntly. His words embarrassed Michiko Oda. Okay, let's go then. Lindsay took Reina Oda out. The two walked on the road, and Reina Oda looked at Lindsay several times, as if she wanted to say something but stopped, which made Lindsay anxious for her. What's the matter with Reina? Lindsay couldn't stand this awkward atmosphere the most. If there was something, couldn't he just say it directly? That, Ani-chan, don't you want to know who this cake is for? If it's for me, there's no surprise if I ask, and if it's not for me, it's embarrassing to ask. In this case, it doesn't make sense whether I ask or not. Lindsay's answer made her speechless and speechless. And Lindsay continued, don't blame your mother. She's also afraid that I'll lead you astray. Don't hide from her. This cake is not for Ani-chan. Oda pouted, this is for a new friend of mine. Oh. Reina has a new friend. Lindsay didn't know if she listened to him, but he still cooperated with her. Ani-chan's expression is so fake. Oda rolled her eyes and complained about him. Forget it. Lindsay shrugged and smiled, not feeling embarrassed at all. Humph, Oda was full of anger and turned her head away from Lindsay. Lindsay smiled and asked, how did I offend our Miss Reina again? You didn't even ask me if this friend was a man or a woman, or what kind of person she was. Lindsay thought about it. It turned out that he felt that he was not valued. Lindsay had to explain with a smile, you are making friends, not me. And if it wasn't your mother, you wouldn't want me to know about this cake, let alone your friend. That's not the case. Oda got anxious after hearing what he said. She really didn't want Lindsay to know about her friend, but it was definitely not what Lindsay thought. She was just afraid that this friend would have something like Sayorioko, and then it would trouble him again. She wanted to wait until she was sure before telling him, and didn't want Linzayan to worry. Okay. Why are you in a hurry? There is a lesson learned from the past. You just need to be careful when making friends. I won't interfere with your friendship. That friend is a girl. She treats me very well. I didn't want to deceive Oni-chan. Oda-reina looked aggrieved. It's a good thing to have friends. One more friend means one more way. Besides, the students of Aoyama Academy are either rich or noble. Linzayan didn't pay attention to her situation, but just talked to himself. If Oni-chan doesn't like it, I can give up my friend. Oda-reina obviously misunderstood what he meant. Linzayan could only helplessly say, I'm telling you the truth, it's good to make more friends, but don't just take advantage of others, learn to share, and Lingne does this well. Linzayan thought about it and took out his wallet and gave her some money. What are you doing, Oni-chan? Take it, just as a backup. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 143. It's not Linzayan who said that these little girls still value economic strength when making friends. At least he saw that in their class. You can't get along with them without money. And the people in this school are really rich or noble. If you don't have money, you'll be embarrassed to talk to them. Okay. Oda-reina hesitated for a while and took the money. Oda-reina felt even more deeply than him. When she heard those people talking about toys, clothes, cosmetics, and the like, she had no room to speak. The reason why she wanted to bring a cake was because others had brought her food before. She happened to hear Linzayan was going to bring it, so she followed him. She didn't have any pocket money, so she couldn't even afford a bottle of drink. Tell me when you're out of pocket money, but don't tell your mom, or she'll bother me again. Linzayan didn't think it was a big deal. Compared to Yotsuki Hideki's pocket money, he only gave Reina money for 1 or 2 meals. The two walked on the street, and Oda-reina told him about that friend. Coincidentally, her friend also transferred to the school that day, so the two of them could get to know each other so quickly. Linzayan didn't know what Oda-reina thought. Anyway, he hated others interfering with his friendship. Putting himself in her shoes, Linzayan didn't ask much, as long as she was happy. Back in the classroom, Linzayan realized that he didn't know how to give the cake to Hosokawa Ryo. It was okay for Yotsuki Hideki, he could just take it over or bring it to the cafeteria during dinner, but Hosokawa Ryo couldn't. Those silly classmates had a lot of things to do. He didn't care, but Hosokawa Ryo didn't care. After thinking about it, he decided to give it to her after school. After slacking off until the end of get out of class, Linzayan took the cake for Yotsuki Hideki and walked out, waiting for Yotsuki Hideki to come in the corridor. Oda-reina didn't eat with the two of them today. She just said on the phone that the friend invited her to eat together. However, Yotsuki Hideki didn't wait, but Hosokawa Ryo came. Qingtian, what are you doing here? Waiting for Yotsuki Hideki to eat? Really? Hosokawa Ryo put her hands behind her back in front of her, then let's go together. Linzayan then saw the 5-layer lunchbox in her hand. Looking at her and thinking for a while, Linzayan handed her the cake in his hand. Hold it for me first. After saying that, he turned around and went back to the classroom, leaving Hosokawa Ryo confused. When Linzayan came back, Hosokawa Ryo was chatting with Yotsuki Hideki. I'm here. Linzayan nodded to Yotsuki Hideki and handed over the cake in his hand, and he also handed the lunchbox to Linzayan tacitly. The exchange between the two was completed in front of Hosokawa Ryo. Hosokawa Ryo didn't know what they were doing. Let's go, we won't go to the cafeteria today. Why? Yotsuki Hideki was a little puzzled. They were in the cafeteria before, why did they change places? Look at what you have in your hands. You already have food. Why do you still need to go to the canteen? It's so far. It takes half an hour to walk back and forth. To put it bluntly, it's just laziness. Lin Zion took them to the back of the teaching building. Hosokawa Ryo looked confused. Isn't this our secret base? How can you bring others here? It's a pity that Lin Zion didn't notice her, but was talking to Yotsuki Hideki. This made Hosokawa Ryo feel distressed. It was obviously a story of 3 people, but I still didn't have a name. Ryo classmate. Huh. Hosokawa Ryo came back to her senses and found that the 2 of them were already sitting on the grass. She also hurriedly sat down next to Lin Zion. Qingtian classmate, your things. Hosokawa Ryo handed over the cake that Lin Zion had just given her. This is for you, why are you giving it to me? This is for me. Hosokawa Ryo took her hand back immediately. Yes, this cake was made by Michiko, Reina's mother. Yeah. Thank you, Qingtian. Hosokawa Ryo almost laughed out loud, and didn't hear what Lin Zion said next. This proves that Qingtian still hasn't forgotten her. Qingtian, try my cake too. Hosokawa Ryo opened her 5-layer lunchbox, and the meat caught her eye. A large piece of fried pork chop, lettuce as a base, a few stir-fries, and rice sprinkled with some seaweed. It still looks very appetizing. At this time, Lin Zion suddenly remembered that he owed Gong Zhongri 2 pounds of braised beef. Let's talk about it when we have time, it won't be a big deal in the next few days. Ryo's cooking skills are still so good, I still miss it after not eating it for so long. Lin Zion was telling the truth. The food made by Hosokawa Ryo was more practical than that made by Oda Michiko, and it was more to his taste. Tisk 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 tisk. Yotsuki Hideki, who didn't want to eat dog food, interrupted the 2 people's nonsense. Lin Zion just smiled at his teasing. On the contrary, Hosokawa Ryo blushed and lowered her head to deal with the cake. Let's eat, stop talking nonsense. Lin Zion put Yotsuki Hideki's lunchbox in front of him and winked at him. Brother, you have to take responsibility for saying the wrong thing. Yotsuki Hideki's face changed, and he picked up his lunchbox with a wry smile. He was really asking for death. He originally wanted to eat the cake made by Aunt Oda first, but now he can only solve his own lunchbox. I don't know if I can still eat it. Hosokawa Ryo dealt with the cake and didn't notice the confrontation between the 2. Lin Zion has always thought that Ryo Hosokawa's eating is very interesting. Like Zyobai, he never gets tired of watching it all day long. Hosokawa Ryo suddenly looked up and saw Lin Zion, who was really looking at him. He quickly put his head down again and stuffed cake into his mouth. Lin Zion smiled slightly, then picked up the 1-layer box lunch that Hosokawa Ryo gave out and started eating. Of course, Hosokawa Ryo's appetite couldn't be satisfied by a small piece of cake, so she had to solve 2 of the 5 layers. After eating, Lin Zion leaned directly against the tree next to him. The comfortable life sometimes gave him an unreal feeling. It's like a dream that is disillusioned when you wake up. What are you thinking about? Zio Hideki asked when Lin Zion said this. Hey. By the way, didn't your sister hit you after she took you back? How come nothing happened to you? It's okay for you to say that you want me to lie to my sister. Hey. What you said is wrong. Who am I doing this for? It's not you. You also agreed with this plan at the time. What are you talking about? Ryo Hosokawa asked, not understanding what the 2 of them were talking about. This. Lin Zion looked at Zio Hideki, originally wanting to ask for his consent, but he didn't expect him to speak up himself. Hideki Yotsuki told Ryo Hosokawa how his sister oppressed him, and then told her what happened yesterday. Lin Zion looked at it and shook his head. He loved and hated his sister. Is your sister biological? Why do they treat you like this? Hosokawa Ryo also felt very strange after hearing this. Because she herself has an older brother and a younger brother. According to her own experience, this relationship is very abnormal for siblings. Although no one reads it, I still have to be worthy of the recommendation given to me by the editor, so I will update it 3 times during the recommendation period. I don't want to be cold yet, please help me. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 144. After being reminded by Hosokawa Ryo, Lin Zion began to think about the relationship between Yotsuki Hideki and his 3 sisters. Let's start with the most intuitive appearance. Not to mention that Yotsuki Hideki's appearance is obviously more delicate than his sisters, his 3 sisters also have their own characteristics. And his eldest sister is much taller than the other 2. And from what Lin Zion saw, their personalities are even more different. Misa, eldest sister, is rational and cold, and she looks like a strong woman. Guanghui, second sister, is cold and extreme. I'm afraid she can't tolerate anyone except Yotsuki Hideki. Marina, third sister, is eccentric and a little black-bellied. This Marina made him a little confused, because this kind of person has no logic at all, and does whatever he thinks of. To sum up, they have so many differences in appearance and personality, and the only direct connection between the 3 seems to be Yotsuki Hideki. Tell me the truth, what's going on between you and your sister? Faced with Lin Zion's pressure, Yotsuki Hideki hesitated for a long time before saying, "My 3 sisters are not my biological sisters, they were adopted by my parents." No wonder Lin Zion didn't react too much, which explained their strange relationship. Yotsuki Hideki was a little panicked at first, ready to be laughed at by Lin Zion, but Lin Zion and Hosokawa Ryo didn't react at all, instead they looked like as expected. "Aren't you going to ask?" Yotsuki Hideki asked tentatively. "What's there to ask?" Lin Zion rolled his eyes at him. "Isn't it just that your parents helped you find a child bride, and there are 3 of them? They are so far-sighted. I admire them." "What are you talking about?" "They are my sisters." Yotsuki Hideki blushed and shook his head frantically. Yotsuki Hideki asked Hosokawa Ryo for help, but Hosokawa Ryo looked at him with contempt, making him so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. "Okay, it's time to go back to the classroom." Lin Zion saw how miserable he was and came to his rescue. "Humph. Man," Hosokawa Ryo complained in a low voice. Although it sounded like she was talking about Yotsuki Hideki, she was looking at Lin Zion. "Ahem, let's go." Lin Zion didn't know why she was looking at him, but his instinct told him that it would be better not to ask. The 3 of them dispersed. Yotsuki Hideki was used to drinking beverages after meals, so he left first. Speaking of which, there are really many vending machines in Neon, and the variety is diverse. Everything can be vended by vending machines. Fruits, fat, sensitive, times, meat, etc. can all be vended by vending machines. The beverage vending machines that can be seen everywhere on campus are just the tip of the iceberg. Lin Zion ate a little too much, so he didn't go with him, but went back to the classroom with Hosokawa Ryo. During this time, Hosokawa Ryo kept asking him about Otarina's trivia, and behaved differently from before. Moreover, the question was very ordinary and did not involve any personal issues at all, which made it difficult for Lin Zion to refuse her. Until returning to the classroom, Lin Zion did not know what she wanted to ask. Lin Zion was confused, but Hosokawa Ryo was relieved. She knew from indirection that Otarina was still a younger sister. And from the tone of Lin Zion when she talked about Otarina, and the inadvertent complaints, this seemed too bland to Hosokawa Ryo. The relationship between them was not as close as imagined, Hosokawa Ryo thought to herself. Hosokawa Ryo ran to wash the lunch box, and Lin Zion returned to the classroom first. To be honest, he was still a little embarrassed. After all, she had to wash the dishes after eating someone else's. Forget it, bring some snacks to her when the time comes. Lin Zion thought about it and still felt that this was the best. There was almost no need to think about giving Hosokawa Ryo something, just food. Compared with the morning class, The afternoon class is much easier to get by. Generally, it is not a main class. The teacher also knows that the students will definitely not be as energetic afternoon as in the morning, so they are not very strict. But it had nothing to do with him. He was just slacking off all day, and there was no difference between morning and afternoon. If his parents hadn't insisted on him studying, he would have gone home and laid down long ago. He knew everything he should learn, and he didn't want to learn anything he shouldn't learn. Forget it, just treat it as satisfying the regret of not having read any books in 2 lifetimes. When the school bell rang, everyone was in a mess. In less than 2 minutes, most of the people in the class left. Those people had something to do, such as tutoring, club activities, dates, etc., unlike Linzian who had nothing to do. Linzian didn't move, still sitting in his seat. He was used to waiting for everyone to disperse before leaving. He didn't like the feeling of being squeezed, as if his private territory was invaded, and he had plenty of time. Hosokawa Ryo didn't leave either. She looked at Linzian obscurely through the crowd. Although she wanted to go home with Linzian after school, her father was waiting outside. Not to mention going home together, if her father saw her and Linzian walking out of the school gate together. Based on her understanding of her father, he would definitely investigate Linzian. It would be fine if it was someone else, but she knew that Linzian valued personal space very much. At that time, the two of them would definitely have some conflicts, and it would be even more uncomfortable for her to be caught between the two of them. So from the overall perspective, Hosokawa Ryo still had to hide her feelings for Linzian from her family and wait until the relationship between the two was confirmed before telling her family. But the problem was that Linzian was like a piece of wood. He didn't feel her feelings at all and didn't respond to her hints at all. She herself couldn't say the words to confess. She usually had to rehearse several times before speaking. It was basically impossible for her to say such words. And she deliberately avoided him some time ago. She didn't know how Linzian felt about her now. So, Hosokawa Ryo's strategy plan almost died. Fortunately, from today's test, Qingtian classmate did not alienate me. Although it is a bit difficult to restart the strategy plan under the eyes of my parents, it is not difficult for me, Hosokawa Ryo. Ryo classmate, aren't you leaving yet? Linzian asked curiously, looking at Hosokawa Ryo who was in a daze. Normally, she would have left at this time. Why is she still here today? But think about it. She is probably immersed in those virtual fantasies again. Linzian knows that she often indulges in the plots of those detective novels or mystery novels, so she often loses her mind. Sometimes she is still talking to you in the previous second, and she is in a daze in the next second. He has encountered this situation many times, but he just laughed it off, and sometimes he would tease her because of this. After all, she didn't do it on purpose. On the contrary, her stupid feeling made him feel funny. But if she didn't leave, she would be the only one left in the classroom, so Linzian reminded her. Oh. By the way, school is over. Hosokawa Ryo came back to her senses and was busy packing up. Linzian didn't mind waiting for her for a while, so the two of them walked out of the classroom, but Linzian had to go to the junior high school to pick up Otarena, so they went their separate ways downstairs in the teaching building. John's Magical Journey was written by a friend of mine. Although it is a fantasy book, it has a light novel style. If you are interested, you are welcome to read it. Also, don't tell him when you go there, enter the village quietly, and don't shoot. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 145. Ryo, what's wrong with you? Hosokawa Yuji asked when he saw his daughter's listless look. Although this daughter has been staying at home, she often won't tell him about any difficulties she encounters, and she has always been on her own. It was not until after the accident that he realized that he was not doing a good job as a father, so he often took time to accompany her. It happened that Hosokawa Ryo's brother took over his work some time ago, so he simply moved to Tokyo with his wife and lived with his daughter. Since then, he has been paying close attention to his daughter's situation, but now things seem a little wrong. I'm fine, just a little tired. Hosokawa Ryo was a little uncomfortable with her father's excessive concern. Although she knew that her parents loved her very much, they were busy with work before, so they rarely greeted her like this, and most of them were contacted by phone. But for the past few days, her parents' concern for her was too sudden, so she was a little uncomfortable. Hosokawa Yuji saw that his daughter didn't say anything, so he didn't ask any more questions, but called her home. He was the driver these days. The place where Ryo Hosokawa lives now is the one she lived in when she first came to Tokyo, a modern-style flat-floor luxury house, which is a world of difference compared to the place she rented. When he returned home, Yuji Hosokawa saw his daughter enter the room and immediately found Ryo Hosokawa's mother. Since he couldn't ask, maybe he could change someone else. After all, daughters are closer to their mothers. After listening to her husband's words, Hisai Hosokawa asked with a strange look on his face, "You didn't know that your daughter was wrong now? I thought you knew." "This, of course I know, isn't this asking you what you know? Of course I know what Ryo is thinking, so don't worry about it, it's her own business." Faced with his wife's perfunctory attitude, Yuji Hosokawa certainly couldn't just let it go. At worst he would ask himself. However, Hisai Hosokawa obviously knew what he was thinking, and immediately said, "Don't bother Ryo, remember." "Why?" "I just asked you if you remembered." Remember, as a man who loves his wife, Yuji Hosokawa saw that the situation was not right and immediately agreed. Of course, Hosokawa Ryo in the room didn't know about their conversation. She was now annoyed by the reconstruction plan, but she didn't know where to start. Dong dong, a knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door and saw her mother standing outside. Hosokawa Ryo hurriedly greeted her, "Mother." Hosokawa Hisai just smiled at her daughter's greeting and said, "Let's go in and talk." "Yes, Mother." Hosokawa Ryo hurriedly made way. In her memory, she was more afraid of her majestic mother than her father. "Come, sit down." "How long have we not talked?" Hosokawa Hisai sat on the bed, thinking, half a year. Or a year. Hosokawa Ryo sat next to her and didn't answer. Being alone with her mother put her under a lot of pressure, because she had never successfully deceived her mother since she was a child. Even if she succeeded, she felt that her mother did it on purpose. The older she got, the more she felt that she couldn't see through her mother. She liked suspense and mystery novels largely because she wanted to know what her mother was thinking. "I indulged in fantasy because only in that place can I escape from my mother's eyes." Seeing that Hosokawa Ryo did not answer, Hosokawa Hisai said to himself, "Among the three children, I am most worried about you. You are too strong and don't even tell us that you are injured. You can only silently hold on." "I didn't." "Okay, no." Hosokawa Hisai looked at her with a smile, "Just remember that we are behind you." Hosokawa Ryo looked at Hosokawa Hisai in confusion. She didn't understand why her mother suddenly said this. "But there are three treasures to deal with, parents." Okay, I know." "Yeah, okay, I know. You," Hosokawa Hisai poked her head with a finger, "your father and I will go back tomorrow. I am very worried about you like this." "Huh?" Hosokawa Ryo turned to look at her mother. Happiness came too suddenly, which caught her off guard. "Why are you so happy? Do you really want us two old guys to leave?" Hosokawa Hisai teased her. "No, what did mother say?" Hosokawa Ryo denied her mother's teasing. "By the way, why are you leaving tomorrow? Is there something going on at home?" "This was originally a temporary decision. Your father said he would take me around the world to fulfill the promise he made when he was young." Hosokawa Hisai smiled with pursed lips, as if she was a little embarrassed to talk about this in front of her daughter. Hosokawa Ryo saw her mother smiling so sweetly that she began to fantasize about traveling around the world with Lindsay Ian. Ryo, Hosokawa Hissy called her several times before pulling her out of her fantasy. I'm very sorry, Mother. Hosokawa Ryo was scolded for being distracted when she was a child, so it was difficult for her to immerse herself in fantasy in front of Hosokawa Hissy. When she came to her senses, she had to apologize quickly. However, the sermon that Hosokawa Ryo expected did not happen. Her mother was still the same, slightly tilting her head to look at it, with a warm smile on her face. It's okay. What were you thinking about just now? You were laughing so happily. Hosokawa Hissy didn't say anything this time, which made her feel a little uncomfortable, so she carefully tried to probe, Mother, why? But before she finished speaking, she was interrupted by Hissy. Hosokawa, I want to apologize to you here. I wanted to train you to be a lady before, but I didn't take your feelings into consideration. But now, as long as you like it, it's fine. How could that be? Hosokawa Ryo was a little overwhelmed. How could her usually strong mother be so easy to talk to today? But as a child, she still said the other way around, Mother is doing it for my own good. It's all my fault that I was ignorant when I was a child and failed my mother. Okay, let's not talk about those old things today. Hissy. Hosokawa waved his hand. Let's talk about something else. Others. What does Mother want to say? For example, your little boyfriend. Although Hissy Hosokawa covered her mouth with her hands, she couldn't hide her smile at all. You, what are you talking about? Hosokawa Ryo twisted her hands together and pretended to be calm to answer Hissy Hosokawa's words. Look at how red our Ryo's face is. Hissy Hosokawa smiled and pointed to the dressing table next to her. Hosokawa Ryo subconsciously looked in the direction she pointed. When she saw the mirror, she knew she was deceived because her face was pale instead of red. It was obvious that she was frightened by her mother's words. No. Just an ordinary classmate. Even though she knew she couldn't hide it from her mother, Hosokawa Ryo still wanted to struggle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 146. Are you afraid that we won't agree? What era is it now? Hosokawa Hissy said with a smile. The little action just now has betrayed Hosokawa Ryo, which made her more certain that her guess was correct. No, really not, just ordinary friends. Hosokawa Ryo denied it flatly, and she would never admit it, and this was indeed the fact that her relationship with Lin Zion was still at the stage of friends. Seeing his daughter deny it again and again, Hosokawa Hissy frowned and asked, are you really just friends? Hosokawa Ryo's neck shrank, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Hosokawa Hissy saw that his tone scared his daughter a little, so he asked in a gentle tone, does he know? Hosokawa Ryo didn't say anything, just shook her head. Unrequited love is the most troublesome, especially when the other party doesn't know yet. It is impossible to let Ryo confess first, just look at her timid look. Moreover, she doesn't know how to dress up. She is only slightly nearsighted, but she insists on wearing glasses, and she chooses thick-framed glasses. Her face is not big, and now half of her face is covered. Look at her messy hair, and she doesn't know how to match clothes. When you open her wardrobe, you will see clothes that focus on comfort, which are loose and baggy, and don't show her biggest advantage at all. Fortunately, she usually wears school uniforms to school, but the school uniforms are a little big, which makes people feel bloated and shorter. Seeing his daughter like this, Hissy Hosokawa shook his head. How can others look up to you? While Hissy Hosokawa was busy criticizing Ryo Hosokawa felt her mother's eyes scanning her whole body and her hands touching her randomly, and she almost shrank into a ball. These can be solved. Our Rio's foundation is not bad, Hosokawa said to himself. Huh? Mother, what did you say? Nothing, Hosokawa answered casually, and then suddenly asked as if he remembered something, what's the name of that person? I'll go ask someone. There's no need to think about relying on her own daughter. She might as well do it herself, go to the door to propose marriage, snatch the person away first, and then decide whether she likes him or not. Mother. This is my own business, please don't interfere, just like you did back then. Hosokawa Rio's face changed, and she said very seriously. Hosokawa Rio said this not because she doubted her mother's ability. If Hosokawa could come forward, she would definitely have a greater chance of success than if she did it herself. But based on her understanding of Lin Ziyan, Hosokawa behavior would only make him more resistant, and then the chance of success would be reduced, which was not what she wanted to see. Seeing that her daughter said this, Hosokawa had to give up the idea of helping her, but she was still very curious about what magic that man had that made her daughter like him. I can promise not to interfere in this matter, and I can also help you hide it from your father, but you have to tell me about that person. I need to judge whether he will harm my daughter. Okay, mother, what do you want to ask? It was beyond Hosokawa Rio's expectation that her mother would give in, and she could only accept her mother's questions. What does he look like? This is the question she wants to know most. Looking at her mother's gossipy face, Hosokawa Rio sighed and said helplessly, anyway, I think he is very handsome. Tisk tisk, this is what happened before they even confirmed the relationship. Hosokawa smiled at her daughter's crazy look, but she was satisfied with herself. What is his family's financial situation like? He should be quite rich. He doesn't seem to be short of money. And I've been to his house. It looks quite big. I heard that he bought it himself. You've also been to his house. I went there with the teacher. Don't think too much. How could I think too much? It's obviously you who think too much. Hosokawa Rio was helpless. How could she have such a mother? What type does he like? Is he a person of appearance? She wanted to help her daughter evaluate. If she only looked at the appearance, she would be out of luck. Besides, such a person is not reliable, so she would not agree. Probably not. Hosokawa Rio was a little entangled with this question. If Aota-san valued appearance, he would not have a conflict with Tsuji Tomi-san because of me, but the people around him, whether it was Ota's mother and daughter or Yutsuki-san, were all very good looking. Seeing her daughter's hesitation, it seemed that the man was not very reliable, but Hosokawa Tsuji was not too worried. As long as her daughter liked him, she would train him well. Then tell me how you met and how you fell in love with him. She wanted to help her daughter judge whether this was just an ordinary affection or a real love. She was afraid that Hosokawa Rio, who had never experienced love, would mistake affection for love, which would be troublesome. Hearing this question, Hosokawa Rio was stunned for a moment. She suddenly had a vague memory of the time when the two met. She only remembered that the breeze-like smile almost instantly cleared the dark clouds in her heart. Rio, Rio. Seeing that his daughter was in a daze, he called her several times, but there was no response. Finally, he pushed her to wake her up. It's okay. Tell me quickly. Hosokawa Tsutomu urged his daughter, her gossiping spirit was already burning. Rio blushed and pushed Hissy out of the room, locked the door, and it was too shameful to say those things in front of her mother, so she couldn't open her mouth at all. Hissy knocked on the door several times and left. After the matter was confirmed, it was time to take action. Lin Ziyan took Ota Reina to walk on the street. After so many times, Reina's stress reaction was not so strong. Even if a car passed by, she would not react greatly. Of course, there was still a little reaction, but generally speaking, it was getting better. What is Reina eating for lunch today? Because of what happened in the morning, Oda Michiko did not prepare a lunchbox for her to take to school. If she ate with him, she would definitely not have to worry. Didn't you see that he was full today? Eat the lunchbox she brought. Didn't I give you money? Lin Zion frowned slightly. He was still thinking that Reina was most likely to go to the canteen to buy a bag of bread. First, it was cheap, and second, it was convenient. And there would be no comparison. When he usually saw those little girls eating together, they would discuss who brought what in the lunchbox, whose was more advanced, and whose was more beautiful. Anyway, they were just nosy, but the bread sold in the school was different, and others had nothing to say. But why did Reina eat other people's lunch boxes? She asked me to eat with her. She said she wanted to eat cake. Oda Reina didn't understand why Lin Zion had such a big reaction, so she had to answer carefully. Lin Zion also realized his problem and explained, I was just surprised that your relationship improved so quickly. You became so familiar with each other in just a few days. Well, she said that I have a very reassuring smell. Oda Reina always gets a little excited when talking about her friend. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 147. Haha. Lin Zion chuckled, go home and ask your mother what kind of washing powder she uses, and then tell her, then she will feel at ease. Lin Zion didn't expect Rina Oda to believe this. She had already experienced what happened to Ryoko Sagaya, but she was still so naive. He hung out with her every day and never smelled anything. Could that person be more powerful than him? Lin Zion admitted that there are capable people in this world, but not here. He knows his little piece of land better than anyone else. But she is very good to me. Oda Reina did not dare to refute him openly, but just tested from the side. Anyway, just be careful and remember to be smart if something happens. After all, he promised not to interfere with her making friends, so Lin Zion didn't continue, he just reminded her. Oni-chan treats me better. Oda Reina seemed to notice that Lin Zion was a little impatient, so she leaned over to try to ease his mood. Lin Zion couldn't help but smile when he saw her clumsily holding his hand. I'm not bad enough to let Lina comfort me. In fact, Oda Reina was right. Lin Zion was really a little impatient. After all, there was Oda Michiko to deal with at home. If she could adjust herself well, she would eliminate the discomfort without bothering him, but Lin Zion felt that this was impossible. After all, he knew who Michiko was. Trouble. Also, he has indulged himself too much recently, which has caused his state of mind to become a bit unstable. After all, if something like state of mind cannot be regained, something will go wrong, and he has to put the matter of rebuilding his state of mind on the agenda. All in all, it's just a bunch of trouble. Is this life? Having money can't solve all problems. When he got home, Lin Zion saw Ling Nei running upstairs, saying she wanted to do homework. After Reina left, Lin Zion went to find Michiko Oda, and finally started talking in her room. How about it? Have you thought about it clearly? Is there something wrong with Lina or yourself? Lin Zion said straight to the point. Michiko Oda did not answer his words, but just stood in front of him, looking a little embarrassed. After all, Lin Zion had just barged in suddenly. Seeing her like that, Lin Zion knew that he still had to rely on himself, so he simply asked, what do you think has changed in Lin? Reina was very good before. Hell. Lin Zion interrupted her with a chuckle, you clearly know why she is like that. She is good because she is sensible. It is good for her to do that under those conditions, but the current conditions are no longer. It's different. Do you want to suppress her nature? No, Rina shouldn't be like this. Michiko Oda wanted to refute him but couldn't find any strong arguments, so she could only hesitate and didn't know what she was talking about. Then what should she be like? Does she have to live the way you want? Sometimes you think this is good for her, but she may not understand. Have you ever thought about what she really needs? It's normal for children to be a bit naughty. As adults, what we have to do is to guide and lead by example, rather than just preaching and violence. Linzian is very serious about preaching, but he is actually very bad at it, and he really doesn't like to be someone else's life mentor, because everyone has different values, and sometimes they may not be able to talk together. But his words may not be useful. Although Michiko Oda seemed to be listening to him, her state was similar to when he was in class, and he could see through it at a glance. That stubborn thought cannot be reversed in a short time. Let's not talk about Reina, let's talk about you. When one path doesn't work, try to take another path, don't stick to it. Me, Michiko Oda pointed at herself with a puzzled look on her face. Why are you talking about me? Yes, let's talk about how much you have changed. I haven't changed. Michiko Oda thought about these days and didn't find that she had changed. Is it true that it hasn't changed? Linzian asked her with a smile. For example, the number of times I laugh has increased. Is it true? Michiko Oda thought for a moment, and it seemed that this was really the case. Even if it is true, does this count as a change? If you think it doesn't count, then let's change it. Looking at her stubborn mouth, Linzian continued, for example, you have gained weight recently. Huh? Michiko Oda subconsciously touched her waist, her face instantly turned red, and she asked, are Aota-kun saying I'm lazy? There is no heavy work, the quality of life has improved, and the weight will naturally go up. The comfortable life these days has made her a little slack. No, just kidding. Linzian smiled and waved his hand. Look, we are changing every day after changing to a new environment. You and I are the same, but you have never been in contact with the old me before, so you can't see you come out, but the changes in Reina who have been with you day and night have become obvious in your eyes, so you feel that Reina has changed too much to be like this. Linzian did not stop and continued, I know you are doing it for Lingna's good, but do you know how much effort I have put in to let her live like this? But you just want to suppress her and turn her into the next you. Do you remember what you asked me before? Now I will tell you my answer. Linzian looked at her and said word by word, I think you are doing a very bad job as a mother. Really? Michiko Oda said to herself with a look of disbelief, am I really that bad? Alas, Linzian sighed, the main reason for your cognitive errors is the uneasiness caused by the sudden change in your living environment, and Linnea's drastic changes have aggravated your uneasiness. You are afraid of your relationship with Linne being separated by this change. That's why, to put it more simply, everything you do is to attract Reina's attention. In fact, there is one most important point that Linzian did not mention, that is, as Linzian gradually enters their lives, what Michiko is actually afraid of is that Linzian has replaced her position in Reina's heart. This is the fundamental reason, but this he definitely couldn't say it out loud, so he simply changed the concept and induced Michiko. Really? Oda. Michiko was doubtful. In this case, wouldn't she be like a baby crying to her parents to get attention? The sudden change in identity made her a little unacceptable. Although this does sound a bit, well, unbelievable, you will know this if you think about it yourself. There is no need for me to lie to you. Oda. Michiko thought about it according to Linzian's thinking, and it seemed that this was really the case. Actually, you don't have to worry about the relationship between Linne and you having problems. This is a relationship where blood is thicker than water. How can it be so easy to break up? Linzian could only comfort her temporarily before bigger problems arise. The more Linzian said this, the more panicked she became. Seeing that she was still like that, Linzian had no choice but to use his trump card. Although it was a bit risky, speaking with facts was the most intuitive way. If you want to prove Reina's relationship with you, I have a way. What can I do? You go to my room first. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 148. Oda. Michiko didn't understand what strange method Linzian had come up with, but she had to do it for the answer. He said, hide in the closet, I'll do the rest. The closet in his room was built into the wall, so the rooms on both sides of his room were smaller than ordinary ones. Lin Zian helped her close the closet door, checked it, and turned and left the room after finding no flaws. What he had to do now was to ask Odarina to come over. That's right, his method was to ask Odarina in person. As for whether something would go wrong, nothing serious would happen with him around, and he believed that Odarina was a smart person. Lin Zian found Odarina in her room. Lin Zian looked in through the crack of the door and saw Rina writing furiously, really doing homework. Rina, come here. Lin Zian knocked on the door to attract her attention. What's wrong, Ani-chan? Come here, I have something to ask you. Although Odarina didn't know what Lin Zian wanted to say, she still stood up and walked over. Lin Zian took her to his room and locked the door. Odarina watched Lin Zian's actions but didn't react. Instead, she asked, Ani-chan, why did you ask me to come over? This was the first time that Lin Zian took the initiative to ask her to come over. To be honest, she was not nervous at all, but a little excited. What does Ani-chan want to do? Come on, sit down first. Lin Zian asked Odarina to sit down, and looked at the closet. After confirming that there was nothing to do, he began to plan. I have something to ask you. Odarina sat on the edge of the bed. In this case, he should sit opposite Reina, but Lin Zian found that he had no place to sit, so he had to half squat in front of Reina. Lin Zian silently complained in his heart, I must bring a chair in next time. Oh, are you asking that, friend? Odarina was a little disappointed. It turned out that he was just asking a question. She thought. No, Lin Zian's words interrupted her association, I'm asking about your mother. What did Ani-chan do to your mother? Nothing, but don't you think your mother is a little weird recently? What do you mean, Ani-chan? Are you saying that your mother has been a little irritable these days? Yes, how do you feel about this? Huh? I don't feel anything. Odarina was confused. She didn't know what Lin Zian wanted to express. Didn't Ani-chan say that women will be like this for a few days every month? Just like me last time. It's not because of that. Your mother must not have had her period. How does Ani-chan know? Anyway, I just know it. Don't worry about it. Lin Zian is so sensitive to the smell of blood. If there is any, he will definitely know it. Hey. No, we are off topic. I'm not talking about this. Lin Zian felt as if he was confused. What does Ani-chan want to say? Odarina supported herself on the bed with both hands, leaning forward slightly, her face almost touching Lin Zian's. You're still laughing? Lin Zian put his finger on her forehead and pushed her back. Stop playing. It was Ani-chan who started it first. Okay, let me ask you directly, if your mother moves out, will you go with her? What are you talking about, Ani-chan? Odarina's face turned pale in an instant, and she didn't even have time to change the smile on her face. If, don't be nervous first. Lin Zian didn't expect the sentence to have such a big impact on her. You said you wouldn't leave me. Do you want to leave Reina like that, man? Odarina grabbed his hand and put it on her face. I didn't say I didn't want you. Lin Zian was helpless, this time he was shooting himself in the foot. Then why did you chase Reina away? Did Reina make you angry? I will be very good in the future. Don't chase Reina away. Odarina's eyes were red, with a thin mist on them. Her hands turned white because she was too strong, and her body was shaking slightly. I didn't, I really didn't. Oh, it's over. This can even make a mistake. Lin Zian felt that it was useless to say anything now. It's like this. Isn't it that your mother thinks that I have led you astray and wants to move out with you? I really don't want to chase you away. Is that so? Odarina stood up and walked towards the door. I'll go tell my mother that Ani-chan didn't teach me bad things. Hey, wait. Lin Zian pulled her. Your mother is here. Who are you going to find? If you go to her like this, she will think that I asked you to go. Don't go. I'll tell her later. What should I do? Reina doesn't want to leave Oni-chan, Oda Reina said and drilled into him. This was too much. Lin Zion pulled away from her. Your mom is here, do you want me to die? Who knew that the more Lin Zion avoided her, the more she leaned towards him, and Lin Zion had to give up resistance and let her hold him. Lin Zion didn't dare to make any big noise, otherwise Oda Michiko would jump out and everyone would be finished. Why are you doing this? Lin Zion felt that the plot was a little wrong. Why did he have a strange feeling? Oni-chan promised me. You answer my question first, with me or with your mom. Lin Zion took her off his body and put her on the bed. Do you have to choose? Yes, I want to know. I'd better go with my mom. Oda Reina hesitated for a while, and finally gave him an answer he expected. Why? I have to remind you that there will be no such life after leaving here. You and her will return to the previous life, or even worse. Can you accept this? Although I really want to be with Oni-chan, I am the only relative of my mother. I can't leave her, and Oni-chan will live well even if she leaves me. Oda Reina seemed to be relieved, with a faint smile on her face. Lin Zion didn't know what to say for a while. If my mother and I move away, can Oni-chan promise me one thing? Oda Reina suddenly asked. You say it first. Lin Zion will not boast, and it will be embarrassing if he fails to fulfill it. Oda Reina mysteriously leaned close to his ear and said, Oni-chan, can you wait until I grow up? After that, she pecked Lin Zion's face lightly, and even Lin Zion didn't react. Why? Lin Zion touched the place just now and asked puzzledly. Humph. Oni-chan, you big idiot. Oda Reina pouted and ran out by herself. Lin Zion watched Oda Reina go out. Whether he knew what it meant or not, he was frightened anyway. This was too exciting. People with weak hearts would definitely be killed. Fortunately, Lin Zion's strong psychological quality suppressed it and he did not lose his composure. I don't know if Michiko saw it. This is a big problem. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 149. Come out, Reina is gone. Lin Zion knocked on the closet door and waited for Michiko Oda to come out. How about it? I didn't lie to you, I said your daughter. Lin Zion's voice stopped suddenly because he saw Michiko Oda looking at him with disdain. Huh? What's your look like? Where did I offend you? Is it easy for me to do it for you? Humph. Lolicon. Michiko Oda didn't hide the disgust on her face at all, and she almost spit on him. I didn't do anything. Lin Zion denied 3 times, but to no avail. You have to remember, Reina is still underage. As soon as she said this, Lin Zion felt unhappy. What do you mean? I do things worthy of the conscience of heaven and earth. You can ask Reina. Originally, he was not interested in Oda Reina, he just thought she was cute. Is it okay for humans to appreciate cute things? Why do you have to think so wildly? Can our thoughts be healthier? Seeing Michiko Oda's disgusted expression, Lin Zionzin joined forces, picked up Michiko Oda, threw her onto the bed, and held her down with both hands. What are you going to do? I called someone. Michiko Oda struggled hard, but it was obviously of no use. You scream, Reina is right next to you, let's see what the consequences are when the time comes, Lin Zion said with a sinister smile. Do you really think he is a little sheep? If you don't clean it up, you won't know who the owner is here. Hearing Lin Zion's words, Oda Michiko gave up her struggle and lay on the bed like a dead fish. She knew that she would not be able to resist him, and if he angered him, even Reina would suffer. Looking at the humiliated Michiko Oda, Lin Zion let go of her hand and said with a smile, "No more fun." Michiko Oda didn't answer him, just tilted her head to one side. Lin Zion pinched her face with his hands, pushed her back, and said with a smile, "You also remember that I am not interested in Lene, but I am quite interested in you." After saying that, he stood up and left the room, leaving Michiko Oda in it. It is true that he is interested in Oda Michiko, but forcing this method is too despicable in his opinion, and it really makes him uninterested. Lying on the bed, Michiko Oda's breathing gradually became calmer. The aggression Lin Zion showed just now was really terrifying. His salty appearance these days has confused Oda Michiko's idea of him, so much so that she has forgotten what kind of person he is. No, he is just a salted fish. Humph. Scared me. Oda Michiko shook her head to expel the strange thoughts from her mind, then got up from the bed, straightened her messy clothes, and finally walked out of Lin Zion's room as if nothing had happened. In the next few days, Oda Michiko seemed to be a completely different person. It was normal for her to be nice to Odarina, but it was abnormal for her to be nice to Lin Zion. She was so nice that she thought Lin Zion was her. "Where is my son?" This confused Lin Zion. Is she not sick? But if she doesn't cause trouble, let her alone. She can't change the world anyway. Life was as before, uneventful and stable for a few days. Xiaobai has not been idle these days. He practices hard every day, sleeps when he is full, and eats when he is full. He successfully upgraded and is now at the pig level. Pig Lin Zion was playing with Xiaobai in the room. He used to be able to pick it up with one hand, but now he can't. It wasn't that Lin Zion didn't have enough arm strength, but that holding Xiaobai up with one hand would cause side leakage. What was once the thing in the palm of your hand is gone. The only thing that surprised him these days was that Ryo Hosokawa went home with him again. Of course, Reina Oda is also there. But she seems to have this inexplicable hostility towards Ryo Hosokawa. Lin Zion couldn't understand the two of them, so he simply ignored them and went his own way. In the past few days, Chihiro Shigeki finally solved his own hidden dangers. Although the body looks thinner than before, at least the foundation is solid and there will be no collapse problem. "I'll give this to you." Lin Zion gave her the bead. Anyway, that thing was his game. It was originally made for her, but it was useless for him to get it himself. "Thank you, master, for the gift." Chihiro Shigeki moved his hands into the void and took the beads into his body. "Remember not to cause trouble for me next time. Clean it before eating. If you can't finish eating, put it in the beads first." Chihiro understands. Chihiro Shigeki, who had been trapped for so long due to food poisoning, seemed very happy to be free and kept walking around the forest. "Okay, stop turning around, let's go out." In the past few days, he had been huddled in the basement when he had nothing to do, and spent most of his time stabilizing his state of mind, so now he is out of seclusion and entering the salty land of land again. No one in this world can be as salty as him. "Mom, where is Unai-chan?" "I don't know. If it's not on the second floor, it's in the basement." Michiko Oda, who was preparing dinner, replied casually. Odarina walked to the living room. In the past, she would watch TV with Lin Zion, although neither of them was watching TV. But in the past few days, she noticed that Lin Zion seemed to go to the basement whenever he had free time. She didn't dare to ask him what he was doing, so she could only wait outside. After finally waiting for Lin Zion to come out, Odarina just came over and was interrupted by the ringing of the phone before she could say anything. It wasn't hers, the voice came from Lin Zion. Lin Zion took out his cell phone, and when he saw the caller ID on the screen, he pointed at the cell phone to Odarina, who was walking over, and went upstairs. The call was from Yukino Takemi, which made him have to be careful. After all, he knew your ability and would not come to you if there was nothing wrong. In other words, if he found you, it meant that there was something wrong. "Why did you come to me?" Uncle. Can't I come to you if there was nothing wrong? Your father asked me to take good care of you. We haven't contacted for a while, right? Let's make an appointment to have a meal together. If this old guy hadn't told Lin Ziyan's father about it, Lin Ziyan wouldn't have had a headache about school. Now that he said he wanted to have a meal, it was obvious that he had something to ask him. Thinking is one thing, and answering is another. Of course, it depends on when uncle is free. Anyway, I am free every day. Then tomorrow, I will have someone pick you up after school. Let's get together and keep in touch. Okay, uncle will treat you, I will have a big meal then. Haha, as long as you like, uncle will make sure you are full. Lin Ziyan agreed casually, ate the sugar coating first, and whether to accept the shell or fight back depends on the situation. The two exchanged pleasantries and hung up the phone. After all, the most important thing had been discussed. Everyone was smart, so there was no need to waste everyone's time. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 150. As soon as he got to the building, Lin Ziyan saw Odarena standing at the stairs. When he looked into her resentful eyes, Lin Ziyan felt guilty. Sorry, I just had an important call. Lin Ziyan smiled awkwardly. What does Reina want to talk to me about? Can't you just talk to Unai-chan? Odarena was obviously in a bad mood, and she turned and left after saying that. She had been thinking about sharing her joy of making friends with Lin Ziyan these days. After all, she could tell him. Who knew that he was out of sight all day, and the two of them didn't even have time to talk, especially just now, which instantly diluted the joy, and she didn't have the heart to do it. Inexplicably, Lin Ziyan watched her walk away, and didn't know what she meant. After school, he was the only one in the empty classroom. Odarena had already made arrangements, and he asked Hosokawa Ryo to take her back. At first she was unwilling and insisted on leaving by herself, but she finally compromised. He was waiting for Shuya Wuhai's call, but why hasn't he come for so long this time? It's impossible to stand him up. Shuya Wuhai is a smart guy who won't do such a stupid thing. Even if he can't come due to something, he will notify him. It's impossible for him to stand him up for no reason. That means he is entangled in something. Lin Ziyan suddenly remembered that he was cheated by Shuya Wuhai last time. Although it was indeed his fault, with his personality, he will definitely take responsibility if you make it clear. But the problem is that he first deceived Lin Ziyan and then explained it. Unfortunately, he couldn't say anything at that time because he was indeed at fault. But can the feeling of taking the initiative and taking the initiative be the same? This caused Lin Ziyan to feel a little resentful. This time he must make a lot of money from him. But thinking about it, forget it. They are all acquaintances. There is no need to do this. After all, he has helped me and has a good attitude. The most important thing is that with his strength in Neon, it is still possible to find him in the future, so as to avoid embarrassment. While he was thinking about it, Shuya Wuhai finally came. But he didn't call, but came to the classroom in person. Ziyan, I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. Shuya Wuhai lowered his posture as soon as he came up, so Lin Ziyan couldn't say anything. It's okay, where are we going to eat today? I know that uncle is a professional foodie, he shouldn't fool me. Haha, don't worry about this, I dare not take you to ordinary places, I will take you to the best places. Then let's go. Let's go. When he went downstairs, Lin Ziyan didn't expect that he drove the car directly downstairs, and this car was different from the previous one. It was a silver-white sports car, and there was no driver, which meant that Shuya Wuhai drove here by himself. He didn't even bring a driver. It seems that this meal is not so easy to eat. Is Uncle Shuya going to be a driver? Lin Ziyan said half-jokingly. What? Ziyan, do you want to try this car? No, I don't want to be caught driving without a license, so let me be your driver. Yukino Takemi didn't continue to chat with him, but just smiled and sat in the driver's seat. Lindsay Ian also sat in the passenger seat. You can joke, but if you really sit in the back seat, you are not treating people as human beings, and what is his identity? Listening to the powerful roar of the engine, a thrust wrapped people in the seat, and the car rushed out like an arrow from a string. Lindsay Ian was powerless to complain. You are the only one who dares to drive so fast in school. Although there are not many people in school now, it is still not good to drive so fast. Uncle, slow down, we are still in school. Haha, it's okay, Yukino Takemi responded casually. Lindsay Ian's words were somewhat useful, and the speed of the car slowed down. When they got outside and the speed stabilized, the car seemed very quiet. This atmosphere made Lindsay Ian feel a little wrong, so he took the initiative to find a topic. Is GMA okay? Yes, she's fine. Shuya Wuhai paused for a moment before continuing. GMA is studying at Qingshan Academy now. Yes, Lindsay Ian was not surprised by this, because Qingshan Academy was originally invested by Shuya Wuhai in order to give his daughter a better environment. It is normal for Shuya GMA to study there. Why did you come to me this time? Why didn't you tell me on the phone? It was not convenient at the time, and you? Shuya Wuhai glanced at him, and then said meaningfully, some things are better known by fewer people. Tell me now. I will be responsible for the introduction. It doesn't matter if we can reach an agreement or not. Just treat it as having a meal together and introducing some powerful people in Japan to you. Let me make it clear first, birth, aging, illness and death are fate, I can't control it. There are not many people in Japan who can be said to be powerful by Shuya Wuhai, and the most likely problem for those people is life expectancy. Even if he has the ability, he won't help with this kind of thing, let alone he doesn't have it. Actually, there was, but the method was a bit unprofitable, and he never does unprofitable business. No, I don't know the details, but it's not for this. Shuya Wuhai is not a person who doesn't know what to do. He can't ask Lindsay Ian for those things. If he wants to ask him, he will wait until he has problems. When they arrived at the place, Shuya Wuhai drove straight in, and Lindsay Ian followed the car to see the general situation. This is a place that looks like a private manor, divided into two layers, inner and outer. The outer layer is very open, with 2 rows of trees planted on the roadside. Looking inside, Lindsay Ian also saw a small bamboo forest and a large stone with 3 ancient Chinese characters visiting bamboo house written on the stone. Not far away, there is also a wooden pavilion with a chessboard and 2 chess cups inside. Shuya Wuhai drove on the outer layer and finally stopped at a place. Let's walk over. The two got out of the car, and Lindsay Ian and Shuya Wuhai walked side by side. Shuya Wuhai introduced this place to Lindsay Ian. This was originally a failed manor, and later the current owner bought it and transformed it into what it is now, as a place similar to a private restaurant. Only the rich and noble can come here to eat. However, the inner courtyard was only repaired and not changed much, so you can see the architectural style of the ancient times. This place is very famous in our circle, and some dishes are also very distinctive. Hearing this, Lindsay Ian observed the inner courtyard from the outside. Its style is that of a mansion in the Edo period. Walking in, the inner courtyard was just like that. It had everything it should have, but no special features. Seeing that Lindsay Ian was not interested, Shuya Wuhai did not continue to talk. He just took him to a private room and left, leaving Lindsay Ian alone there. Seeing that there was nothing to do, Lindsay Ian walked out of the room and walked around, without any intention of being a guest. Nonsense, when have you ever seen a guest thrown anywhere? He still had something to ask of him. There was no one to greet him, so don't blame him for taking over.